Stop what you're doing right now and listen to me carefully. What I'm about to tell you will completely change how you see every interaction, every relationship, every career move, and every life decision you've ever made. You think you're living your own life? Making your own choices? Pursuing your own dreams? That's cute, but you're not. You're just a piece on someone else's chessboard, and you don't even know it. Right now, while you're watching this video, there are people making decisions that will affect your salary, your housing costs, your health care, your children's education, and they're doing it based on a system that's been running for centuries. They know which piece you are in their game. They know exactly how you move, how you think, and most importantly, how to keep you exactly where they want you. The question is, do you want to keep being their pawn, or are you ready to learn how to play the real game? See, most people spend their entire lives fighting symptoms instead of understanding the system. They complain about their boss, their government, their circumstances, never realizing they're all just moves in a chess game that started long before they were born. But what if I told you there are only 6 types of people in this world, and each one moves completely differently? What if understanding these 6 types could instantly reveal who has real power, who's just pretending to have power, and most importantly, how you can transcend the entire game? In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you something that'll blow your mind. You'll discover which piece you've been playing as, and trust me, most of you won't like what you find out. You'll see why 90% of people are stuck in the same predictable patterns, how a small group manipulates those patterns for their benefit, and why the people you think are in charge are actually the most trapped of all. But here's the kicker. I'm also going to show you how to step off the chessboard entirely and create your own game with your own rules. This isn't just theory. This is a practical framework that explains everything from why your career feels stuck, why certain people seem to effortlessly attract opportunities, why some leaders fail spectacularly while others seem untouchable, and why the traditional advice about working hard and following your dreams keeps most people trapped in cycles of frustration. By the end of this video, you're going to see the world through completely different eyes, and you're never going to be the same person again. So stick around, because what comes next is going to challenge everything you thought you knew about power, success, and control in the modern world. You know what's wild? Right now, as you're watching this, there's a massive chess game happening all around you. And the kicker? Most people don't even realize they're on the board. They wake up, go to work, scroll through social media, make their little daily decisions, thinking they're living freely. But friend, every move you make, every choice you don't make, every pattern you follow, it's all part of a strategic game that's been running long before you were born. Think about it this way. When you walk into a McDonald's, you're not just grabbing a burger. You're participating in a power structure that someone else designed. The colors on the walls, the height of the counter, even the way the menu's organized, it's all strategic positioning. Someone studied game theory, understood social psychology, and created a system where you feel like you're choosing, but really, you're just moving exactly where they want you to move. That's the chess model in action, and you're experiencing strategic thinking whether you know it or not. Now this is where it gets really interesting. The people who understand this game, the ones with real strategic awareness, they're not stressed about it. They're not angry or frustrated like most folks walking around today. Why? Because they've figured out the power dynamics at play. They see the chessboard. They understand that life strategy isn't about fighting the game. It's about recognizing which piece you are and then deciding if you want to stay that piece or level up your strategic mindset. But what blew my mind when I first discovered this? The most powerful people in the world don't hide this information. It's right there in plain sight. Warren Buffett talks about strategic positioning all the time. Political leaders openly discuss power moves. Corporate executives write books about their strategic living approaches. The thing is, most people are so busy being reactive, so caught up in their daily drama, that they miss the bigger game entirely. They're operating with power consciousness set to 0, while others are 3 moves ahead, starting with understanding the most common piece on the board. And honestly, where most people stay their entire lives. Pawns make up about 90% of the population, and they've got one defining characteristic. They move forward one square at a time, following rules someone else created. Wake up at the same time, drive the same route to work, buy the same brands, think the same thoughts as everyone around them. They're not bad people. They're just living what Aldous Huxley called a soma holiday, numbed into compliance by comfort and routine. What's fascinating about pawn mentality is how incredibly comfortable it is. There's no real decision-making stress, no need to develop your own strategic thinking, no responsibility for creating your own power dynamics. Someone else tells you what success looks like, what happiness means, what you should fear, what you should want. The social hierarchy is crystal clear. You follow the rules, you get your paycheck, you buy your stuff, you feel safe. It's like being on autopilot, and for millions of people, that autopilot feels like freedom. Kinda ironic, isn't it? But this is where it gets dark. Pawns can only move forward, and they can only capture diagonally. In life terms, that means they can only progress in the most obvious, linear way. More hours for more money, bigger house for more status, louder opinions for more attention. And when they try to capture something, whether it's a promotion, a relationship, or even happiness, they can only do it sideways, indirectly, often through manipulation or playing victim. They've never developed what philosophers call will to power, the ability to create their own values and direction. The crazy part? Most pawns don't even realize there are other pieces on the board. They think everyone's playing by the same rules, moving the same way, stuck in the same limitations. They'll spend decades complaining about the system without ever recognizing that the system is just a chess game designed to keep them exactly where they are. But pawns have something the other pieces don't, the potential for transformation. Because in chess, when a pawn reaches the other end of the board, it can become any piece it wants. That transformation starts with understanding who really runs the institutional game. The Rooks. These are your institutional power holders, and they operate exactly like Machiavelli described centuries ago. They understand that power maintained through institutions is more stable than power maintained through personality. Think CEOs of major corporations, high-ranking government officials, university presidents, heads of major organizations. They've got something pawns will never have, the ability to move as far as they want in any direction, as long as nothing's blocking their path. What makes Rooks so powerful is their strategic positioning within existing power structures. They don't create the chessboard, that's someone else's job, but they absolutely dominate entire rows and columns of it. A Fortune 500 CEO can influence thousands of lives with a single decision. A Federal Reserve Chairman can move markets with a few words. A Supreme Court justice can reshape society with one vote. They understand game theory at an institutional level, using their strategic awareness to maintain and expand influence through established channels. But get this, Rooks are simultaneously incredibly powerful and completely trapped. They can move anywhere they want along their straight lines, but they can't jump over obstacles, and they definitely can't change direction mid-move. That's why you see so many corporate leaders making decisions that seem obviously stupid to outsiders. They're not stupid, they're just locked into institutional thinking. Their power dynamics are so tied to existing structures that they literally can't see alternative approaches to strategic living. The Rooks control the obvious power moves: hiring and firing, policy creation, resource allocation, market manipulation. They've mastered social psychology within their domains, and they're experts at maintaining social hierarchy. But they've got a blind spot that would make Machiavelli nervous. They assume everyone else is playing by institutional rules, moving in straight lines, respecting the same boundaries they do. They have no clue how to handle someone who moves in completely unpredictable patterns. Knights, the unconventional strategists who move in that weird L shape that confuses everyone else on the board. 2 squares in one direction, 1 square perpendicular. It makes no sense until you realize it's the most unpredictable, creative movement in the entire game. In real life, these are your entrepreneurs who disrupt entire industries, artists who reshape culture, inventors who create technologies nobody saw coming, and rebels who challenge systems everyone else accepts as permanent. What makes Knights so dangerous is their strategic thinking operates on a completely different frequency. While pawns are moving 1 square forward and Rooks are dominating straight lines, Knights are jumping over obstacles like they don't exist. They're the ones who see power structures and think, yeah, that's cute, but what if we just go around it? Steve Jobs didn't compete with existing computer companies. He redefined what a computer could be. Elon Musk didn't try to make better cars. He questioned why we were still burning fossil fuels. The psychological profile of a knight is absolutely fascinating. They're comfortable with being misunderstood, even thriving on it. While everyone else is worried about fitting into the social hierarchy, knights are creating their own categories. They've developed a strategic mindset that sees opportunities where others see obstacles, possibilities where others see problems. Their approach to strategic living is less about following established power dynamics and more about imposing their vision on reality rather than accepting reality as given. And honestly, that drives traditional power holders nuts. But listen to this. Knights embody what ancient Stoics taught about focusing on what's within your control. You can't buy them off like pawns, you can't intimidate them like other pieces, and you definitely can't predict their next move. Their power consciousness operates on innovation and creativity rather than accumulation and control. And that unpredictability? That's exactly what makes them so valuable in this chess model. While everyone else is playing checkers, They're playing three-dimensional chess, but they're not the only ones working sophisticated angles diagonally across the chessboard of society. These aren't your typical power players. They don't control institutions like rooks, and they don't disrupt through innovation like knights. Instead, they shape how people think, what they believe, and ultimately, how they see reality itself. We're talking about media moguls, influential writers, spiritual leaders, thought leaders, and cultural architects who understand that the most powerful strategic positioning isn't about controlling what people do. It's about controlling what they think is possible. The genius of bishop-level strategic thinking is that it works through influence rather than force. A bishop moves diagonally, connecting different areas of the board in ways that seem indirect but are incredibly powerful. Think about how Oprah influenced millions of people's life choices without ever giving them direct orders. Or how certain economists shape global policy without holding political office. Or how social media influencers change behavior patterns across entire generations. That's diagonal power. It moves through culture, belief systems, and social psychology to create massive change through seemingly indirect strategic living. What's brilliant about bishops is their understanding of power dynamics through narrative control. They know that whoever controls the story controls the game. They're not interested in accumulating traditional power like rooks, or disrupting existing systems like knights. Instead, they're playing a much longer strategic game. They're shaping the consciousness of entire populations. They understand that real power consciousness isn't about forcing compliance. It's about making people want to comply, making them believe that what you want them to do is actually what they want to do. Pretty sneaky, right? And this is where bishop strategy gets really sophisticated. They operate in pairs, and they never occupy the same colored squares. In life terms, this means ideological influencers typically specialize in either light square influence, optimism, possibility, growth, hope, or dark square influence, fear, scarcity, control, limitation. Think about it. You've got motivational speakers telling you anything is possible, while news media tells you everything is dangerous. Both are bishops, both are shaping your strategic mindset, but they're operating on completely different frequencies. Yet even bishops aren't the ultimate expression of power. The queens, the ultimate power players who've mastered every type of movement on the chessboard. These are the rarest pieces in the game of life, the ones who can move like a rook when they need institutional power, like a bishop when they need ideological influence, and adapt their strategic positioning to any situation. We're talking about historical empire builders, certain tech moguls who reshape entire industries, and those shadowy power brokers who operate behind the scenes of global politics and economics. What separates queens from every other piece is their comprehensive understanding of power dynamics across all dimensions. They don't just have strategic thinking, they have meta-strategic awareness. They see the entire chessboard, understand how every piece moves, and can anticipate consequences 3, 4, even 5 moves ahead. A queen-level player doesn't just respond to the current game. They're simultaneously playing multiple games across different time horizons. They understand that real strategic living means being able to operate effectively in any power structure, whether that's corporate, political, social, or economic. The psychology of a queen is absolutely fascinating because it requires holding multiple contradictions simultaneously. They need the institutional knowledge of rooks, the creative unpredictability of knights, the ideological sophistication of bishops, and the patience to work with pawns without becoming one. This isn't just about accumulating power, it's about developing such advanced power consciousness that they can literally reshape the rules of whatever game they choose to play. They're not just strategic, they're architectural, designing the very frameworks within which others operate. But plot twist, queen-level power comes with what Schopenhauer called the burden of consciousness. Sure, they can move anywhere on the board, but they're also the primary target for everyone else. Every other piece would love to take down a queen, and the strategic mindset required to maintain that level of power is exhausting. Plus, even queens are still playing within someone else's chessboard. They might be the most powerful piece in the current game, but they're still constrained by the fundamental rules of chess itself. Which brings us to the most protected, yet most limited piece of all. Found about power. The king appears to be the most powerful piece, but is actually the most constrained. If you understand strategic positioning, you realize the king is probably the most limited piece on the entire board. One square in any direction, that's it. These are your figureheads, your symbolic leaders, your presidents and prime ministers and CEOs who everyone thinks are running the show, but who are actually just the most visible and most vulnerable targets on the chessboard. The psychological burden of being a king is absolutely brutal. Everyone's watching your every move. Everyone's trying to capture you. And your actual strategic thinking is incredibly constrained. You can't take risks like knights. You can't dominate territory like rooks. You can't shape ideology like bishops, and you definitely don't have the flexibility of queens. Your entire strategic living revolves around not getting checkmated, which means you're always playing defense, always reacting, always trying to maintain position rather than actually advancing your power dynamics. Talk about a golden prison. Get this, kings often have less real power consciousness than any other piece on the board. They're surrounded by advisors, protected by institutions, moved around by other players who have better strategic awareness of the bigger game. Think about it. How many presidents actually create policy versus just signing what others put in front of them? How many CEOs actually innovate versus just managing what their teams develop? Kings are often just the face of power while the real strategic mindset operates behind the scenes. But the ultimate truth about kings reveals something that would fascinate any student of power. The whole game is designed around protecting and capturing them. Every other piece, every strategic positioning, every power move, it's all in service of this one, limited, vulnerable piece. Which means if you're a king, you're not actually playing the game anymore. You've become the game. You're not making strategic living choices. You've become the objective that everyone else is strategizing around. And that realization leads us to the most important question. What if the real power move isn't becoming the most important piece on someone else's chessboard? Positioning isn't becoming a better chess piece, but realizing you can step off the board entirely? Most people spend their whole lives trying to move from pawn to rook, or developing the creative strategic thinking of a knight, never questioning whether the game itself serves their interests. But the ultimate power consciousness comes from recognizing that the chessboard is just one game among infinite possibilities, and you have the choice to stop playing by rules someone else created. Consider this: every piece on the chessboard, no matter how powerful, is still reactive, responding to the game rather than creating it. Even queens, with all their strategic awareness and power dynamics mastery, can only move in predetermined patterns. They're still trying to win a game that someone else designed, using victory conditions that someone else established, competing for objectives that someone else decided were valuable. But what happens when you step back and ask the fundamental question? Who created these values? Why did they create them? And what would happen if I created my own? This is where real strategic living begins, when you stop trying to optimize your position within existing power structures and start creating your own frameworks entirely. Instead of wondering whether you're a pawn or a knight, you begin designing your own games with your own rules. Instead of developing strategic thinking within predetermined systems, you start questioning the systems themselves. This isn't about rejecting all structure. It's about conscious choice regarding which structures serve your authentic goals versus which ones just perpetuate systems designed to benefit their creators rather than their participants. The people who've truly exited the chessboard aren't trying to accumulate traditional power or climb social hierarchies. They've developed such advanced power consciousness that they create their own definitions of success, their own metrics for progress, their own frameworks for strategic mindset development. They might still interact with the chessboard when it serves their purposes, but they're not emotionally invested in winning chess games. They're playing entirely different games, games of meaning, creativity, authentic relationships, personal evolution, and contribution that transcends the traditional power dynamics. They've achieved the highest form of freedom, the ability to choose their own constraints rather than having constraints chosen for them. And the curtain of the greatest game ever played. And now you can never unsee it. Every person you encounter from this moment forward, you'll instantly recognize which piece they are. Your boss? Probably a rook, moving in straight institutional lines. That influencer you follow? Classic bishop, shaping your thoughts diagonally. Your friend who always comes up with crazy business ideas? Total knight energy. And that politician everyone thinks is so powerful? Just a king, trapped in a golden cage, one square at a time. But knowing the game isn't enough. The real question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to stay a pawn, comfortable in your predictable little square, complaining about the system but never actually challenging it? Are you going to try to become a rook and dominate through institutions someone else built? Or are you ready to do something most people never even consider, step off the board entirely and start playing by your own rules? Here's what I want you to do right now. Look at your current situation, your job, your relationships, your goals, your daily routine. Ask yourself, which piece am I playing as, and is this piece getting me where I actually want to go? Because if you're not consciously choosing your strategic position, someone else is choosing it for you. And trust me, they're not choosing it based on what's best for your life. They're choosing it based on what's best for their game. The most dangerous thing you can do after watching this video is nothing. The second most dangerous thing? Thinking you can just mentally file this away and go back to business as usual. The power structures we talked about today, they're counting on your inaction. They're betting that you'll watch this, feel enlightened for about 5 minutes, then go right back to being the same predictable piece you've always been. Don't prove them right. in your brain. If you're seeing patterns you never noticed before, then you absolutely need to hit that like button right now. And I'm not just saying that for the algorithm. I'm saying it because there are millions of people out there who are stuck playing games they don't even know they're in, and this information could literally change their lives. When you like this video, you're not just supporting the channel, you're potentially waking up someone who desperately needs to see this chessboard for what it really is. Drop a comment below and tell me, which piece have you been playing as, and which piece do you want to become? Or better yet, are you ready to exit the board entirely? I read every single comment, and I'm genuinely curious to see how many of you recognize yourselves in these patterns. Plus, your comment might be exactly what someone else needs to read to have their own breakthrough moment. And listen, if you want more content that reveals the hidden systems running your life, that connects ancient wisdom to modern power dynamics, that gives you the tools to see through the illusions most people accept as reality, then you need to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because what we just covered today? This is just the beginning. There are so many more layers to this game, so many more strategies the power players use, and so many more ways you can transcend the entire system. The choice is yours. Stay a piece in someone else's game, or become the player who creates their own board. But choose quickly, because while you're deciding, the game is still being played, and your position is still being determined by forces that couldn't care less about your dreams, your potential, or your freedom. Your move.